never be the same.
Fortnite and other video games risk damaging kids' lives. That is part of a headline from the UK's Daily Telegraph recently. This whole thing again.
Same shit.
Yeah. Welcome to Pretty Good Gaming. My name is Mike Williams. This is Gareth Evans. Talking about UK specifically's press kind of backlash to Fortnite. It's already we've already seen it a little bit in the US. So there's been like the Fortnite segments on morning breakfast TV and stuff in America. It's kind of really picked up here in the UK now with the newspapers and the tabloids really going for it. So this article emerged in the Daily Telegraph this week with comments from the UK Culture Secretary. Here's what he actually said. Here is what the UK Culture Secretary had to say, quoted by the Daily Telegraph. Too much screen time could have a damaging impact on our children's lives. Whether it's social media or video games, children should enjoy them safely and as part of a lifestyle that includes exercise and socialising in the real world. He also said his department is working alongside game developers to improve online safety. So that is what he said. He said too much screen time, including things like social media and video games, could be a problem, right? And it needs to be part of a balanced lifestyle. That is what he said. From there, the UK Daily Mail ran this headline. Addictive online shooter games such as Fortnite have damaging impact on the lives of children, warns Culture Secretary. The Sun newspaper went for a slightly different approach because it is The Sun. Here's their headline. Fortnite turned my boys into monsters. They broke TV over it. Parents whose kids are hooked on free video game. So that's the Sun have gone for the family impact. Here's how the game is affecting people's lives angle. Whereas the Mail have just kind of really taken the Culture Secretary's comments and fully gone all in on the video games angle with it. And so did the Telegraph with their initial headline as well. That was kind of. That's where it's all come from. It's the article says one thing, and then first it's a headline writer, and then it just spins out of control from there. Right?
That's the tabloids for you, though, isn't it? And Fortnite turned my boys into monsters. So they weren't monsters before. That's just kids, and it's boys. Boys break TVs. That's what boys do. Is it because they were playing Fortnite? Maybe, but is it Fortnite's fault? I don't know. Maybe discipline your kids more.
Well, that's always the first kind of counter argument, isn't it? It's like just
blame the game. Yeah. I mean, I don't see that.
So the whole conversation is basically been sparked up again. The video games, because Fortnite is such a massive juggernaut. Everyone's talking about it. People who don't know about video games ask, "What is Fortnite?" People are aware of it. Celebrities are playing it. The football players are playing it. Yeah. That's part of the reason I think that the Sun has picked it up, and that is what Eurogamer seem to be saying. And Kez McDonald, who's written kind of a counterpiece in The Guardian as well already, they're kind of pointing out that Dele Alli, the footballer, has been doing some like Fortnite
floss. It's the floss, dude. I mean, they've done it. There you go. It's the floss emote. My kids taught me.
And then so the Sun journalists have kind of gone, what's he doing? Oh, he's related to a video game, is it? Video games are addictive, aren't they? Let's do some news stories on that. So that's kind of how it's just hit that level of cultural awareness, and everyone knows what it is now. And when you get a game that big, you get this conversation. You had this conversation with Minecraft, the creative educational tool at this point.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, how bad is Minecraft? It's not bad at all. It's very very good game to play as a kid.
Obviously, Grand Theft Auto. Obviously, how many times have we had this conversation about Grand Theft Auto since the late 90s, early 90s? These games have been talked about, and then when Grand Theft Auto came along, that was like the big one that was like, oh, you can beat a prostitute over the head and do whatever, and they just laid out this horrible scenario that could pan out in the game and painted the whole game like that. It's just
just don't get your kids to play them games. I mean, if you know it's an 18 Grand Theft Auto, right?
Yeah.
Your kids aren't supposed to be playing them games. Yeah. That's just,
exactly.
It's just a non-story, really.
So let's talk about where this has kind of come from. Then the Culture Secretary said these things. That is his job. He's the Culture Secretary. He's in charge of the government's policy on everything that's related to culture. That will include video games, and he's supposed to talk about health and balance and lifestyle stuff. And what he said, as far as I'm concerned, is fine. Screen time, I think, is the issue. And that is something that Kez McDonald said in her Guardian piece. There'll be a link in the description if you want to read that. The issue is screen time and parents letting kids do whatever they want, like just looking at the tablets, looking at games consoles, looking at the TV for just, completely unhindered, really.
That's
they can just do it as long as they want. That is the issue. And whether or not, isn't it better to think of that they would be having a bit of a laugh playing Fortnite with their friends than just like watching endless hours of who knows what on YouTube. YouTube's got a big content problem when it comes to kids. We've talked about that on the channel before.
Yeah.
And they could be seeing all kinds of wild stuff. But on Fortnite, they're just having fun with their friends.
Yeah, it feels like it's a responsibility thing. I think that
exactly.
parents need to understand that putting them in front of screens is not responsible parenting. You have to limit that. You have to... I mean, giving them all hours of the day to play a game is not going to be teaching them anything. And if they become addicted, well, like the words being thrown around, addicted to this game,
addicted monsters.
And yeah, exactly. And there's some instance where some woman says, my kids sneak out of bed at night to play the game. They're so addicted, and then they get groggy in the morning. Well, that's a parenting problem. That's not a game problem. It's nothing to do with the game. That's you and your kids. You're not giving boundaries to your kids. I feel like there's a lot of responsibility being shared by parents, and some of the quotes, I don't know if you're going to go into them, but some of the quotes out of The Sun are ridiculous, and it's people not taking accountability for their own parenting skills or lack thereof.
So The Sun reports that in this, remember the Sun's headlines were kind of a little bit more focused on the family and these mums is what they say, who've got to foot the bill, because that's the kind of language that the Sun uses. The Sun says that the mums are footing the bill for the highly addictive online game Fortnite Battle Royale. It also carries a story about some 12 and 9-year-old little shits, I mean boys, who smashed the telly in an argument over the game. Here's a quote from the mum. "Fortnite is just awful. Both my boys are completely obsessed." There's also stories about parents handing out £400 over the course of 3 months to pay for things in Fortnite for their 12-year-old kid. Right, so that is the kind of lack of control that we're talking about there. It's just they're kind of blaming. It's like where that comes from is the kind of, I have no choice here but to hand over £400 because all of his friends are playing the game and whatever. And that is an infuriating comment. And you have to remember when you read these articles that is the whole point. The Sun does not care. There is no motivation here from the Sun to discredit games. And that is that is something that I believe anyway. I really, based on personal experience and everything as well, I don't think that the UK press is trying to kill the games industry. They're just trying to create an outrage.
They're making a clickbait essentially.
Exactly. And they're very good at doing it. That's how the newspaper industry is very old, and they've been doing it a lot longer than YouTube has been around, and they know what they're doing. And then including those kind of comments that can easily be disputed by other people online, by the gamers then going, well, that's ridiculous. Why don't you just control your kids? That's the whole point, to get that argument going and to get that conversation going online, because then it will just drive traffic. That is their sole purpose. Their sole ambition is to get people to read the articles and to buy the newspapers.
There is no balance in these articles. There's just like example after example
definitely not.
of reasons why Fortnite is bad. Right? They don't even raise the issue that parents should be controlling their kids and maybe not giving them. Don't give them the £12 for that emote. Yeah. Just don't do it. Maybe that'll solve your problem. Oh no, it's the games. It's the games that's to blame. There's none of that in there, and there's no other counterbalancing argument which might say that games might be educating your children in some ways and giving them other skills like social skills when they're playing online with other people. And there's many benefits to playing games, none of which is balanced out in these articles.
They do do that thing as well where they point out, like you said, they point out all the negatives and stuff and give you like this tower of awfulness that sounds really horrible. With that, they're not. That's exactly. They're not interested in having the balance come across at all. I think the issue is screen time. I think what is interesting is what in the reports is that they actually criticise the business models. They're not just saying now, like they were doing in the early 2000s with GTA. They're not just going, these games are violent. You can't do that with Fortnite. Of course, there's shooting in it. It's a battle royale game, but there's no corpse. There's no blood. There's no. It's got a very colourful, bright art style that when you get taken out, I think you get like teleported away or something like that. It's not like a death animation or anything, is it?
So, no, that's true.
So it's they can't level that argument. So what they're doing now is they seem to have a problem with the fact that it's a free game that will then have that kind of monetization after it. So they're picking up on the business model of the game this time. And the general addictiveness of it.
The Sun seems to run with the fact that it's free, and that's in quotation marks on the top. It's like, this free game is doing this to our kids. It's like it's addictive. You have to spend all this money. You don't have to play the game. You give your kids boundaries. You don't have to spend money in the game. You don't give your kids money. Just try that instead. And it's like scapegoating. It's the bottom line. It's the scapegoating games in order to create this outrage, like you said.
Yeah.
And it's all just bullshit.
It is, yeah. It really is. There's no other word for it. And but like I said earlier, there's already some good kind of counter arguments to this within the games media. Eurogamer have done a piece on it. Kes McDonald, like I said, both of which will have links in the description if you want to read that. But as for what I was saying earlier, and as for a final kind of counterpoint, that it's all about the readership and getting people to buy the newspaper and read the articles online. That's all they care about. They don't care about bringing down the games industry or discrediting gamers in any way. And the proof of that is in the fact that both the Sun and the Telegraph they've got regular Fortnite articles. They've got articles about Season 4 updates, new changes to the game, new challenges. What is a porter for? They've even got guides on how to complete missions on both of those newspapers' websites. So
as long as there's traffic,
as long as people read it, it doesn't matter.
They don't care. And one final thing, right? My daughter said to me this morning, she's 9 years old, right? She sat there in school and she was saying that her friends, all they talk about is Fortnite. Like the male friends, not boyfriends, they're just like young lads, right? All they talk about is Fortnite in school, and she's commenting on that. I'm like, well, never have I known a game to appeal to such a broad demographic of kids. 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds in school talking about Fortnite. Yeah. Can't wait to get home to play
Prominent
Fortnite.
hip-hop artists, footballers.
It's a complete phenomenon, right? Whether you like it or not, Fortnite is absolutely huge, and it appeals to a lot of people. And there's going to be articles, people are going to be upset, but it's just it's crazy.
Phenomenon. But there you go. The media is having yet another pop at the games industry. Let us know what you think of this down in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. There should be another video on your screens in just a sec, which you can watch when it appears if you want. And there's a link to Patreon if you want to support the channel as well. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.